U.S. trade court blocked Trump's tariff from going into effect. And also, Elon Musk leaves from special government employee from Trump administration. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Berdari. I'm Brennan Paul. Hundreds of Palestinians stormed the United Nations food warehouse in Gaza in a desperate attempt to get something to eat, shouting and shoving each other and ripping off pieces of the building to get inside. The hospital official said 4 people died in the chaos. The World Food Programme said initial reports were that 2 people had died and several more were injured at the central Gaza warehouse. The UN agency appealed for an immediate scale-up of food aid to reassure people that they will not starve. Humanitarian needs in Gaza had spiraled out of control after an almost 3-month Israeli blockade that was eased last week. Israeli authorities said on Wednesday that 121 trucks belonging to the UN and the international community carrying humanitarian aid, including flour and food, were transferred into Gaza. Israel began to allow a limited amount of aid into Gaza last week, but has provided no evidence. Meanwhile, Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, delivered an emotional address to the UN Security Council on Wednesday, breaking down in tears as he described the unbearable suffering of Palestinian children amid the ongoing war in Gaza.
Since Israel broke the ceasefire in March, over 1,300 Palestinian children have been killed and around 4,000 have been injured. These are children. Children. And still, a war against barbarism. Children. Dozens of children are dying of starvation. The images of mothers embracing their motionless bodies, caressing their hair, talking to them, apologizing to them. It's unbearable. How could anyone tolerate this horror?
Mansour cited the case of Dr. Ala Al-Najjar, a Palestinian doctor who lost 9 of her 10 children after they arrived at the hospital where she worked, already dead and burned. Chile announced that it would withdraw its military, defense and air force attaches from Israel, citing the dire humanitarian conditions facing the Palestinian people in Gaza. The foreign ministry said the decision from the Chilean government is a response to the serious humanitarian situation in Gaza as a consequence of the sustained action of the Israeli army.
El presidente de la República ha dispuesto el retiro de estos 2 agregados. Se trata del agregado de defensa y aéreo, el coronel Stuardo, y del agregado militar, el coronel Eló. Esta medida ha sido comunicada. Creemos que efectivamente estamos frente a una situación humanitaria muy grave en Gaza como consecuencia de la acción sostenida del ejército israelí.
This latest action highlights a pattern of diplomatic tension between President Gabriel Boric's administration and Israel since he took office. Significant friction arose in September 2022 when Boric declined to meet with Israeli ambassador to accept his credentials. Early on Wednesday, at least 24 Palestinians were killed in a series of deadly Israeli airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, marking the 600th day of the deadly conflict. Russia expressed a desire to engage in new discussions with Ukraine in Istanbul next Monday to unveil its proposal for a peace settlement. However, Kyiv indicated that it required prior access to the proposal for the meeting to be productive. Diplomatic efforts to end the three-year conflict have accelerated in recent months, but Moscow has repeatedly rejected calls for an unconditional ceasefire and shown no signs of scaling back its maximalist demands. The two sides previously met in Istanbul on 16 May, their first direct talks in over 3 years. That encounter failed to yield a breakthrough. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has been pushing for a peace deal, has become increasingly frustrated with Moscow's apparent stalling and warned Wednesday he would determine within, quote, about 2 weeks, whether Russian leader Vladimir Putin was serious about ending the fighting. Ukraine said it had already submitted its peace terms to Russia and demanded Moscow to do the same. Moscow's offensive, launched in February 2022, has resulted in tens of thousands of deaths and the destruction of large parts of the eastern and southern Ukraine. The Russian military now controls around a fifth of Ukraine's territory, including the Crimean Peninsula, which it annexed in 2014. A U.S. trade court on Wednesday blocked President Donald Trump's tariffs from going into effect in a sweeping ruling that the president overstepped his authority by imposing across-the-board duties on imports from nations that sell more to the United States than they buy. The Court of International Trade said the U.S. Constitution gives Congress exclusive authority to regulate commerce with other countries that is not overridden by the President's emergency powers to safeguard the U.S. economy. The Trump administration minutes later filed a notice of appeal and questioned the authority of the court. The decisions of the Manhattan-based Court of International Trade, which hears disputes involving international trade and customs laws, can be appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington and ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court. Trump has made charges charging U.S. importers tariffs on goods from foreign countries, the central policy of his ongoing trade wars, which have severely disrupted global trade flows and roiled financial markets. Companies of all sizes have been whipsawed by Trump's swift imposition of tariffs and sudden reversals as they seek to manage supply chains, production, staffing, and prices. A White House official confirmed billionaire Tesla CEO Elon Musk is leaving the Trump administration after a tumultuous period working to restructure the federal government. A White House official told it was accurate Musk is leaving the administration. In a post on social media platform X, Musk thanked U.S. President Donald Trump at his time as a special government employee as a part of the Department of Government Efficiency draws to an end. Musk's 130-day mandate as a special government employee in the Trump administration was set to expire around 30th May. The administration has said that the Department of Government Efficiency DOGE efforts to restructure and shrink the federal government will continue. The South African-born tech tycoon had said Trump's bill would increase the deficit and undermine the work of DOGE, which has fired tens of thousands of people. Musk, who was a constant presence at Trump's side before pulling back to focus on his SpaceX and Tesla businesses, also complained that DOGE had become a, quote, whipping boy for dissatisfaction with the administration. Musk complained in a separate interview with the Washington Post that DOGE, which operated out of the White House with a staff of young technicians, had become a lightning rod for criticism. And in other news, Israeli airstrikes blew up the last remaining plane at rebel-held Yemen's international airport weeks after an earlier attack inflicted major damage. An air raid involving multiple strikes hit the Yemenia Airways plane and the runway at Sana'a airport. According to Houthi authorities, the airport had only resumed limited commercial services on 17 May after it was closed by a heavy Israeli attack that destroyed 6 planes 11 days earlier. The Houthis, claiming solidarity with the Palestinians, have been firing on Israel and Red Sea shipping throughout the Gaza war. Israel's defense minister Israel Quds said. Fighter jets targeted Houthi targets at the airport a day after the group fired 2 projectiles at Israel. An Israeli military statement blatantly accused that the aircraft were used by the Houthi organization for the transfer of fighters who plan attacks against the State of Israel. According to a statement from Yemenia, the plane was about to be boarded by Muslim pilgrims bound for the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. The airport is the largest in Yemen and came back into service last week after temporary repairs and runway restoration following previous Israeli strikes. It was mainly being used by UN aircraft and the plane destroyed in the latest Israeli strikes. Still to come, at least 7 died where the migrant boat capsizes off Canary Island. Stay with us. The former surgeon who has admitted sexually abusing hundreds of patients, mostly children, between 1989 and 2014, has been sentenced to a maximum term of 20 years in jail. He told the court he had committed despicable acts over a 25-year period while working as a doctor in Western France. The court had taken into account the fact that the former surgeon had especially sought out unwell, vulnerable and sedated victims. He was handed a suspended 4-month jail sentence for possessing child pornography in 2005, but managed to secure a job as a surgeon at a public hospital in Western France the following year. He continued to work in public hospitals until his rearrest in 2017 on suspicion of raping his 6-year-old neighbor. Police discovered electronic diaries that appeared to detail his sexual assaults on scores of patients in hospitals across the region. In 2020, he was convicted of the rape and sexual assault of his child neighbor, as well as 2 of his nieces and a 4-year-old patient, and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Further investigation into the alleged victims logged on his files led prosecutors to later charge the former surgeon with the aggravated rape and sexual assault of 299 people. A huge chunk of a glacier in the Swiss Alps broke off, causing a deluge of ice, mud and rock that buried most of a mountain village that had been evacuated due to the risk of a rock slide. The authorities said 1 person is currently missing. A video shared on social media showed the dramatic moment when the glacier partially collapsed, creating a huge cloud that covered part of the mountain as rock and debris came cascading down towards the village of Blatten. An official in the canton of Valais, where Blatten is located, told Swiss media that about 90% of the village was covered by landslides. Officials said millions of cubic meters of rock and salt have tumbled down since Blatten was first evacuated this month, when part of the mountain behind the glacier began to crumble, sparking warnings it could bring the ice mass down with it. At least 7 people died when a migrant boat bound for Spain's Canary Islands capsized off the island of El Hierro as rescuers were escorting it to port. The open-top boat, which according to state broadcaster TVE was laden with around 180 people, went down in La Restinga harbour on the archipelago's smallest island. 2 5-year-old girls were among the dead, as well as a 16-year-old girl and 4 women, according to the emergency services. A spokesperson for Spain's Maritime Rescue Service said a rescue vessel was escorting the boat to the harbour, and as it approached, many of its passengers appeared to rush to one side of the precarious vessel, causing it to capsize. Red Cross spokesperson Alexis Ramos told TVE that members of several local dive clubs helped with the rescue, with many specialist divers supporting alerting the emergency services. A medical helicopter was sent to help emergency personnel pluck migrants from the water, the emergency services said. The number of migrants reaching the Canary Islands from West Africa hit an all-time high in 2024, but the number of arrivals has fallen this year. The Atlantic route is especially dangerous as rough weather can easily capsize the fragile rafts dug out like boats and dinghies used by most migrants. Meta's artificial intelligence assistant now has 1 billion monthly active users across the company's family of apps. Meta chief Mark Zuckerberg noted the milestones anew at Meta's annual gathering of shareholders and as the social media behemoth vies with Google, Microsoft, OpenAI and others to be a leader in Gen AI. It was not clear how much Meta AI use involved people seeking out the chatbot versus passive users of Meta AI, as it is built into features in its family of apps. According to Google Chief Executive Sundar Pichai, since Google debuted AI's overviews in search results a year ago, it has grown to more than 1.5 billion users. Google's AI overviews are automatically provided summaries of search results that appear instead of the previous practice of simply showing pages of blue links to relevant websites. Zuckerberg said the focus for this year is deepening the experience and making Meta AI the leading personal AI with an emphasis on personalization, voice conversions and entertainment. And up next in sports, ASEAN All-Stars stunned Manchester United 1-0. Stay tuned.
Daruman jentera moped berbagai kategori terus menggegar dalam perlumbaan motosikal Petronas Malaysia Cup Prix musim 2025. Dengan jiwa kelajuan, nantikan pecutan kemenangan setiap pelumba hanya di RTM.
Kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, the ASEAN All-Stars sprung an unbelievable surprise against English Premier League 13-time champions Manchester United when they beat them 1-0 at the Maybank Challenge Cup match at National Stadium in Bukit Jalil last night. Winger Mamong Lewin, who came on as a substitute, scored the all-important goal in the second half to beat the Red Devils. Appearing for the first time in Malaysia since 2009, United fielded a mix of experience and young players, including Andre Onana, Harry Maguire, Casemiro, Diego Dalot, Manuel Ugarte, and Rasmus Højlund. Onana proved to be a crowd favourite as fans cried out his name every time he touched the ball. United dominated the game in the first half, but both teams' defence were tested several times as the regional ASEAN All-Stars showed they would not be daunted by their more illustrious rivals. ASEAN All-Stars, they mounted a counter-attack with a pass from Adrian Segacic to Mamong Louis on the right, who then calmly tucked the ball past substitute United keeper Thomas Heaton in the 71st minute. Although United were stung into action after the goal, the equaliser they so desired eluded them despite their repeated attempts at goal, and the match ended with a 1-0 victory for the ASEAN All-Stars. United will continue their pre-season tour to Hong Kong and play against the national team on 30th May at Hong Kong Stadium. Meanwhile, the 1-0 victory over Manchester United was considered a historic moment for the ASEAN football region. ASEAN All-Stars head coach Kim Sang-sik described the victory as remarkable, considering that they had only 2 days to train together.
Well, to play against one of the best clubs in the world, it was a great match and a fantastic performance by the team. At the end of the day, we were able to win 1-0, so we're very happy. We were only trained for 2 days, but they played like they played together for 20 years. The team played real good organization, and we're very happy with that.
In the meantime, Manchester United coach Ruben Amorim admitted that his team did not play at their very best.
Yeah, of course, we should perform better. We were slow, and we still don't have in us win every exercise and training, every game. But the important thing is that we didn't have any injury. Some players was a risk, but we wanted to respect all the fans and put all the players in the game.
Ruben Amorim's side endured their worst Premier League season in the club's history, finishing 14 in the season and 15 on the table and missing out on European football. On to European football, Chelsea sparked into life in the second half as they came from behind to claim the Conference League trophy with a 4-1 victory over Real Betis on Wednesday. Their revival inspired by the creativity of Cole Palmer at the Wrocław Stadium. Goals from Enzo Fernandez and Nicolas Jackson, both set up by the excellent Palmer, plus late strikes from Jadon Sancho and Moises Caicedo, secured the silverware after Betis went in 1-0 up at halftime thanks to an early Abde Ezzalzouli strike. The 23-year-old Palmer's 2 assists in 5 minutes during the second half turned the match around for Premier League club Chelsea, and his efforts saw his name player of the match. The victory means Chelsea are the first team to have won all 3 European competitions, having lifted the Champions League twice along with 2 Europa League trophies in their history. They have also won the now defunct Cup Winners' Cup. The heat is on for the UEFA Champions League final at Munich and is getting ready to host the Champions League final between Paris Saint-Germain and Inter Milan on Saturday. Paris Saint-Germain is hoping for a double title win after winning their France's Ligue 1 for a 4th consecutive year in April. PSG, whom is still fresh from winning the French Cup on Saturday, is looking to finally bring back the trophy to Parc des Princes after years of disappointment. Inter Milan, on the other hand, after having narrowly missed out on the Serie A title by a point to Napoli, is hoping for at least one title win this season. Allianz Arena, home to German giants FC Bayern Munich, will host the game and witness who will claim the European prestigious champions. Simone Inzaghi is on the verge of becoming a true Inter Milan great with another chance for an era-defining triumph to make up for the pain of conceding the Serie A title to Napoli. Opened in 2005, Allianz Arena has hosted matches during World Cups, European Championships and Champions League finals. Moving on to tennis, reigning champion Carlos Alcaraz overcame a minor blip to reach the French Open third round on Wednesday. Second seed Alcaraz came through 6-1, 4-6, 6-1, 6-2 against Hungarian Fabian Marozsan to earn his 17th win in 18 matches on clay this season. Reigning French Open champion Iga Swiatek gave an inspired display of clay court tennis against outclassed former US Open winner Emma Raducanu to book a ticket to the third round of Roland Garros on Wednesday. Poland's Swiatek swept to a 6-1, 6-2 win in 79 minutes on court Philippe Chatrier, where she has lifted the trophy 4 times, including for the last 3 editions. And in cycling, overall leader Isaac Del Toro bounced back from the disappointment of seeing his advantage slashed by storming to a brilliant victory on stage 17 of the Giro d'Italia on Wednesday. The Mexican saw his lead cut from 1 minute and 20 seconds to just 26 seconds in stage 16, but attacked on the Le Monte climb before powering away from Romain Bardet and Richard Carapaz in the final 2 stages. Del Toro is now 41 seconds ahead of Ecuadorian rider Carapaz overall, with Simon Yates 10 seconds further back. The 21-year-old finished 3 seconds clear of Frenchman Bardet and 6 seconds ahead of pink jersey rival Carapaz to extend his general classification lead. Yates, who started the day in second overall, was cut adrift by Del Toro's attack, which only Carapaz could initially follow and crossed the finish line 9 seconds behind. It was heartbreak for Bardet, who will retire in 2 weeks' time as he came up just short in his latest bid to complete a hat-trick of stage wins on every Grand Tour. Thursday's 18th stage is a hilly 144-kilometer route from Morbegno to Sassano Maderno in Lombardy.
Super GT 2025 Series dengan 8 siaran langsung perlumbaan, Pusingan 1, 13 April dibawakan dari Litar Okayama International Circuit. Pusingan 2, 4 Mei dibawakan dari Litar Fuji Speedway. Pusingan 3, 28 Jun dibawakan dari Litar Sepang. Pusingan 4, 3 Ogos. Pusingan 5, 24 Ogos dibawakan dari Litar Fuji Speedway. Pusingan 6, 21 September dibawakan dari Litar Sportsland Sugo. Pusingan 7, 19 Oktober dibawakan dari Litar Autopolis. Dan pusingan 8, 2 November dibawakan dari Litar Mobility Resort Montegi di saluran Sukan RTM. Juga secara penstreaman langsung di RTM Click.
That's it from us this afternoon. Our top story today, US Trade Court blocks Trump's tariff from going into effect. Do join us again tonight, 8:30 p.m. for more news on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. And you can also stream us live on RTM Click's website and mobile application. Till then, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Brenda Lupal. Take care.